So it turns out that Fox News was right. There is a Biden crime family, but at the moment it seems to be limited only to President Joe Biden's fail son, Hunter Biden. Yes, Hunter Biden has struck a deal with prosecutors to plead guilty to 2 counts of failing to pay taxes in a timely manner, and the president's son will also complete a pretrial diversion program to resolve a felony gun charge. And as part of that plea agreement, the Justice Department will recommend probation, but a federal judge appointed by Donald Trump will now have the final say in the criminal sentence. And in a statement, the U.S. Attorney David Weiss, also a Trump appointee, said that his investigation of Hunter is ongoing. Joe Biden said he still loves his son, and Republicans are extremely outraged. So basically, there's a little bit for absolutely everyone to hate in this particular agreement. But is this the moment that MAGA has been waiting for, or just more evidence that Joe Biden has weaponized the Justice Department? And what does it mean for the Biden administration to prosecute both his son and a political rival at the same time? Now, the allegations against Hunter Biden have been investigated on 2 tracks, political and legal. On the political side, Republicans have accused Hunter of taking bribes in Ukraine and China in exchange for policy concessions by his father. A Republican Senate committee investigated Hunter's ties to a Ukrainian energy company, but did not identify any policies that were directly affected by Hunter Biden's work. Republicans have also spent several years speculating about the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop.
It's called the laptop from Al.
Their newest allegation is that there is a secret document showing that Hunter and Joe took bribes when Joe was the vice president. Now, much to the chagrin of many of these politicians, the charges here don't have anything to do with those allegations. And as you might recall, in 2018, FBI Director Christopher Wray, who was appointed by Donald Trump, started investigating Hunter's overseas business dealings. The FBI served subpoenas on Hunter and several of his business associates, reportedly looking for evidence regarding foreign lobbying, money laundering, and other crimes. The Hunter probe continued under both of Trump's attorneys general, including Jeff Sessions and William Barr. And the political attacks on Hunter intensified during the 2020 election, while the FBI was continuing the criminal investigation. And after Joe Biden was elected president, he replaced many of the U.S. attorneys appointed by Trump. However, he made an exception for David Weiss, the U.S. attorney in Delaware, who was leading the Hunter investigation. Now, presumably Biden thought that it would appear partisan if he fired the lawyer who was investigating his son. Although Weiss was appointed by Trump, his colleagues described him as a fair lawyer who wouldn't be swayed by partisan interests. And Weiss announced criminal charges on June 20th, 2023. Hunter Biden was charged with 2 counts of willful failure to pay income tax in violation of 28 U.S.C. 7203, and Hunter agreed to plead guilty to both counts. The Justice Department also charged Hunter with possession of a firearm by a person who was an unlawful user in violation of 18 U.S.C. 922 and 924. Hunter Biden agreed to enter into a pretrial diversion program for the firearm violation. And reports suggest that Hunter will be sentenced to 2 years of probation, although that will be determined by a judge according to the sentencing guidelines. Now, Hunter's lawyer, Chris Clark, said, quote, "I know Hunter believes it is important to take responsibility for these mistakes he made during a period of turmoil and addiction in his life. He's looking forward to continuing his recovery and moving forward." Joe Biden issued the statement that, quote, "The president and first lady love their son and support him as he continues to rebuild his life. We will have no further comment." Now, on the other side of the aisle, some of the Republicans who had been making hay out of a potential Hunter Biden prosecution basically lost their minds. Senator Josh Hawley said, quote, "So Hunter Biden gets a special plea deal, slap on the wrist, probably won't do a day of time, while the DOJ charges Trump as a spy and tries to put him in prison forever, 2 standards of justice." Now, it's probably worth pointing out that the DOJ has not charged Trump of being a spy, nor is it seeking to put him in jail forever. But let's dig into the Hunter Biden charges. Now, when you buy a firearm, you have to fill out a firearms transaction record, which asks whether you are an unlawful user or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance. It is illegal to lie on this form, and in 2018, Hunter's then girlfriend, who happened to be his late brother's widow, threw his revolver into a Wilmington trash can. A few days later, a man found the revolver while going through the dumpster. The Secret Service allegedly demanded that the owner of the gun store where Hunter bought the gun turn over paperwork showing that Hunter purchased it. And instead, the owner turned the paperwork over to the ATF. According to the criminal information, Hunter purchased the Colt Cobra 38 Special revolver sometime in October of 2018. Hunter made the purchase, quote, knowing that he was an unlawful user or addicted to a controlled substance. And when he completed the form, Hunter lied about his history of abusing controlled substances. And the statute makes it illegal for certain people to have firearms or ammunition. The list of prohibited users includes people who are drug users or addicts, and to prove the case, the government just has to show that the person was using illegal drugs. Now, Hunter Biden obviously has a long history of drug addiction, and he admitted to using illegal drugs during the time of the offense.
You're smoking crack around the clock.
This particular offense is punishable by up to 10 years in prison, but as my friend Scowell has pointed out many times, the amount of time that someone gets depends on the federal sentencing guidelines and rarely gets the maximum here. Now, some are not happy that the prosecutor here is recommending pretrial diversion for Hunter Biden on the gun charge, but this is a law that many people don't think is actually constitutional because of the Supreme Court's interpretation of the Second Amendment. And on top of that, it is a rarely prosecuted crime. As one commentator pointed out, the addict in possession of a weapon charge is very rarely brought. It's been used as a catch-all for white supremacists in the past when the feds needed something to stick. And there are several instances where defendants received light sentences, like neo-Nazis who were sentenced to time served, and a January 6th defendant who had a big stash of cannabis when they were arrested. And in fact, several federal courts have concluded that Section 922G is unconstitutional because of the Supreme Court's ruling in the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin case. After Bruin, if the government wants to put restrictions on firearm ownership, it must, quote, affirmatively prove that its firearm regulation is part of the historical tradition that delimits the outer bounds of the right to keep and bear arms. Now, federal courts have wasted no time in declaring parts of Section 922G unconstitutional. An Oklahoma federal court has actually ruled it's unconstitutional to prohibit people who use illegal drugs from possessing firearms. The government argued that regulating drug users' access to weapons is, quote, consistent with a long-standing historical tradition in America of disarming presumptively risky persons, namely felons, the mentally ill, and the intoxicated, but the court disagreed, ruling that the use of marijuana didn't strip the defendant of his fundamental right to possess a firearm. A Texas district court also ruled that a marijuana user could not be prohibited from accessing a firearm, and Section 922G8 bars people with a history of domestic violence from owning firearms. But in 2022, the Fifth Circuit ruled that people with domestic violence charges have a Second Amendment right to have firearms. And the three-judge panel wrote that while it would be probably a good thing to stop abusers from having weapons, from a historical perspective, the ban was an outlier that our ancestors would never have accepted. And a few other courts have had similar rulings, but most importantly, on June 6, 2023, the Third Circuit, which includes Delaware, ruled that subsection G1, which prohibits people with prior convictions from owning firearms, is unconstitutional using the same rationale as those other cases. And because of this Bruin case, a domestic violence perp is one of the people who have a constitutional right to bear arms. And while the government appealed these decisions, the momentum is on the side of Second Amendment enthusiasts like Donald Trump Jr. and Hunter Biden. So I guess this brings the Trump and Biden families together in this case. Now, whether they're drug-related or not, devastating injuries and catastrophic events can happen at any time. And the best time to decide which lawyer you're going to reach out to when you or a loved one is injured by someone else's negligence is today, before you're injured. Don't wait until the crisis comes to decide what to do. But if you or a loved one is seriously injured, call my law firm, the Eagle Team. We can help. A free consultation is just a phone call away. All you have to do is click on the link down in the description. Now back to Hunter Biden. On top of the gun charges, Hunter is also being charged with failure to pay income tax. The government alleges that Hunter Biden allegedly received more than $1.5 million in taxable income during 2017, and that he owed around $100,000 in income taxes. Hunter did not pay the taxes by April of 2018 as required by federal law, and in 2018, Hunter received more than $1.5 million and failed to pay his taxes by April 2019. Now, as a result, Hunter pleaded guilty on 2 counts of violating 26 U.S.C. 7203, which states, quote, any person required under this title to pay any estimated tax or tax who willfully fails to pay such estimated tax or tax, makes such return, keeps such records, or supply such information at the time or times required by law or regulation, shall, in addition to other penalties provided by law, be guilty of a misdemeanor and, upon conviction thereof, shall be fined not more than $25,000, $100,000 in the case of a corporation, or imprisonment not more than 1 year, or both, together with the costs of prosecution. And the statute goes on to say that any willful violation of that section will be a felony rather than a misdemeanor, and the penalty is 5 years rather than 1 year. Now, Hunter Biden's lawyer told CNN that Hunter Biden struggled financially during those years, despite making millions of dollars because of his addiction, and the lawyer said that he has now fully paid the IRS debts.
He didn't timely pay the taxes he was supposed to pay at the time. He subsequently has paid them.
And those who are mad about this case want to know why Hunter isn't going to get 5 years in prison. And the answer is pretty simple. Prosecutors offered him a deal if he admitted to guilt, and he took that deal. Now, those lawyers that I've spoken to who regularly prosecute or defend these types of crimes indicate that this kind of plea agreement is nothing out of the ordinary based on the allegations that we're seeing. And ironically, it is the gun charge that is much more unusual in the sense that it's rarely ever prosecuted rather than this particular plea agreement based on the tax charges. But some have pointed out that actor Wesley Snipes got a 3-year sentence for similar tax evasion charges where Hunter Biden won't spend a night in jail. So what about the Snipes case? Well, Snipes stopped paying all taxes in 1999, quote, after coming into contact with tax advisor Eddie Ray Kahn of the tax protest groups American Rights Litigators and Guiding Light of God Ministries. Kahn convinced Snipes that there was no law imposing taxes on income earned from US sources. Now, this is a nonsense sovereign citizen defense that has repeatedly been debunked by the IRS and dozens of courts, but Snipes ran with that argument and took his case to a trial where a jury found him guilty. And odds are that if Snipes had taken a plea agreement, he probably would have gotten a much lighter sentence. Now, some have also criticized Merrick Garland as going easy on Democratic targets, but also in 2022, Roger Stone settled a tax case with the Department of Justice where he and his wife owed a whopping $2 million in unpaid taxes. But there, Roger Stone was allowed to pay it off with no probation or charges. And prosecutor David Weiss has already responded to allegations that Merrick Garland was calling the shots on the Hunter Biden prosecution. In June of 2023, he replied to Representative Jim Jordan by letter saying that Weiss had been granted, quote, ultimate authority over the Hunter investigation. He also affirmed his ability to make decisions without respect to politics. Quote, throughout my tenure as U.S. Attorney, my decisions have been made, and with respect to the matter, must be made without reference to political considerations. And Garland himself commented on the case, but didn't say much. Quote, as I said from the moment of my appointment as Attorney General, I would leave this matter in the hands of the United States Attorney, who was appointed by the previous president and assigned to this matter by the previous administration. He said Weiss was, quote, given full authority to decide the matter as he decided was appropriate, and that's what he's done. Now, the Hunter Biden crime saga is a complex and nuanced case, which makes it ripe for politicization. Now, news outlets covering the trial can shape people's understanding of the issues depending on the details they focus on and the language they use, which is why I'm excited about today's sponsor, Ground News. Ground News is a great website and app that lets you compare related articles in one place from thousands of sources from around the world and across the political spectrum, with context about the source of the information. For example, the big story about Hunter Biden pleading guilty was covered widely by 431 news outlets across the political spectrum. But it really gets interesting when you compare these headlines. Left-leaning articles referred to misdemeanor tax charges, while news outlets on the right referred to it as a sweetheart deal. And both types of sources kept the actual charges vague, so you definitely want to click through and read the entire article. But Ground News digs in with every story and shows that not all of them are evenly reported. For example, the story about a whistleblower testimony released by the GOP was mostly covered by news outlets on the right. And meanwhile, the story about Donald Trump referring to his prosecution as a traffic ticket was mostly covered by the left. And if you look at the factuality ratings for both of these stories, it's not super high, and you'll want to read with caution. And this is just a taste of why Ground News is a fascinating and useful way to read the news, and why it's unlike any other news site out there. So if you want to give it a try, you can use my link and get 30% off their All Access Vantage subscription. Just click on the link that's on screen right now or down in the description. You'll help out independent and transparent news, and if you click on the link below, you'll get 30% off. After that, click on this link over here for more Legal Eagle, or I'll see you in court.